You're listening to Healing Voices Project, where we share stories and the latest information from people who fight addiction every day. I'm Mike Torville, your host and author of Voices from the Fallen. Thank you for listening, for following, and most of all, for sharing with people you care about. Make your voice count too. Hello, back again here at Healing Voices Project. I'm Mike Torville, and today we have with us Gabriel Quaglia. Gabe has been with us before, and thanks for coming back.
Pleasure to be here.
Sure. And we talked a lot about Narcan training last time. We talked about SAD-OD, a couple of organizations that you're, SAD-OD are involved with, the Folding Chair Project. We're going to talk a little bit about the Folding Chair Project today. But again, if you didn't hear the segment we had last time, I'll give a little introduction to Gabe and the work he's doing now. Gabe is, for the last 13 years, I think your date where you last used was October of 2011, so you're going on 13 years. And since then, you've been involved with many organizations in terms of training and advocacy, program development, training for harm reduction, different forms of substance use disease treatment, peer grief support, homelessness, among many other things. So you've evolved quite a bit over the last 12 to 13 years. And again, I'll say it, if anybody wants to learn about Narcan training, please see the previous episode with Gabe, and that's very helpful. A lot of information there. And SAD-OD, I'll mention again, support after death by an overdose, sadod.org, and I encourage people to look at SAD-OD and the support programs they have with that. But today we're going to focus a little bit on your other passion, which is the Folding Chair Project. And the Folding Chair Project, I will say it is an organization that seeks to take a seat at the table and encourages others in order to address public health issues from the perspective of people with lived experiences and those that work directly with marginalized people. And you have a quote from Shirley Chisholm that said, "If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Initiate yourself. Get involved." And that's part of what you're trying to work with, right?
Yeah, and that's, to some degree, that's what I hoped. I kind of gravitated towards that because that's...
stuck with you?
That phrase has always stuck with me, yeah. I was trying to think of a name, and part of it was about, not only like me trying to do what I can outside of, the work life, which is, kind of, often very limited in what I can do in scope, and also encourage others to, because like that's one of the biggest things with me is with everything that I've ever done, especially as far as like organizing, is hoping to encourage other people to take their seat at the table and to use their voice, and to I try to, as little as possible, use my voice to bring up issues that might not be coming up, but also to encourage others at the same time. It's one of those things I always hope to work myself out of a job, right? So
be careful of that.
Yeah, but so that always struck with me because people who are marginalized don't often get a seat, or rarely get a seat at the table, and there are places for them out there that they can, if they want to, and I try to impart that to them, as well as kind of bring light to issues that might not be getting the attention that they could be, or I'm not hearing the perspective that I have and other public health workers have on the particular issue.
And who feels denied, who may be denied a seat at the table or a place to go, or who feels that they're denied. They may not be, but they just feel like they may be denied. So let me ask you this basic question. Who typically do you feel is being denied, and why?
Well, of course, all sorts of marginalized people who are experiencing homelessness, people who use drugs. It's often they're not consulted with about the things that affect them most, about the design and implementation of programs, how to bring these programs about. there's an idea that came around a long time ago. We don't see it as much now as we did for a while, called the Consumer Advisory Board.
Okay.
Or a community advisory board. And what the idea is just to get the people that you serve in a room and talk to them about what they need on an ongoing basis, rather than just kind of keep assuming you know what they want. So there's that, and then there's other perspectives too. I think within the realm of the world of recovery, people experiencing homelessness, people who might still be using drugs, or just kind of maybe in a less chaotic way, that aren't comfortable with coming forward because of stigma. And so also I try to bring forth those views as much as possible. And when I encounter people, like I said, I try to encourage them to, do what they can. And if they're not ready or they don't want to, I'll do what I can. But I'd like to see other people always, step up whenever possible.
Yeah, stigma plays a big part in this, obviously.
Yeah. And for instance, one issue, I've done a small amount of work on so far, and we hope to do more within the organization. But the substance kratom has made a lot of news and big splashes, and boards of health are moving to ban it right now, and they're associating it with the synthetic cannabinoids that are out there, which are totally different type of drug. Kratom's a substance that's been used for like 1,000 years in Southeast Asia. It's not an opiate, but it kind of works on the opiate receptors, and it kind of has a threshold.
What's the effect?
So it's kind of similar to opiates, but just very kind of mild. And it has kind of a threshold where above, once people take it, they just get seriously ill. They throw up, generally. It does have it can have some like very small depressive effects, but like compared to pretty much any opiate, the depressive effects are negligible. The depressive of the central nervous system and the breathing system, right? But so the thing is, though, like I've seen tons of people move off of opiates either onto kratom or use it as a way to detox at home. Because, of course, the worst thing about detoxing and why it's so hard for people is because, you feel like you're dying. Like literally that's what your body is telling you. And if they use all sorts of, a cocktail of drugs when you're in detox to kind of, move those symptoms down. A lot of times that doesn't even work. But because the kratom works on the opiate receptors, it actually really decreases the effects of withdrawal to the point where people can kind of get through it. And some people will even transition over to it and use it kind of like a medication for opiate use disorder, like Suboxone or methadone. But they just don't want to go deal with, going to a clinic for whatever reason.
I don't even know much about kratom. How do you spell that?
Kratom.
Kratom.
Yeah, and I feel like I have to use delicate language, but I feel I feel that there's a lot of fear mongering about it, and it's getting associated, like I said, with synthetic cannabinoids and things like that, which are totally different and very kind of dangerous drugs that are synthetic versus kratom, which is kind of a natural substance. And like I said, it has a lethal dose, 50 LD50 is what they go by a lot. It's about 0.9 pounds of the powder. So somebody would have to consume 0.9 pounds of the powder to put them to the point where it might kill them, right?
Well, almost a pound, call it a pound, but that's a lot.
Yeah. So the thing is, though, that there are a lot of places and there are things like concentrates available, which are problematic because they do concentrate it and you could get sick and it could harm you.
Even
it could depress the respiratory
amount,
system.
Okay.
Yeah. And totally that's problematic. But I've seen so many people using the substance, they don't want to talk about it, though. But they're using the substance to either detox or as a measure to, as a type of medication for opiate use disorder without having to go to a doctor or a clinic or something like that.
Okay.
And
but
so
the side effects can be pretty awful.
The side effects of...
I mean, the effects of kratom, yeah. I mean, you said they get very sick.
If they use too much of it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think, part of what makes it, if you want to call it, nothing is completely safe, right?
Right.
In fact, like I said, the acetaminophen is much more dangerous, and than kratom if we're talking literal toxicity.
Right.
You don't have to take a pound of acetaminophen. You'll damage your liver pretty bad.
Wow.
But I think that kind of keeps people from using it in a dangerous way. And a lot of what people, they cite people that have died on it, and I think like more than 2/3 of these folks had numerous other drugs in their system. And it was blamed on kratom. So there's a lot going on with it right now. But the people that I know personally that utilize the substance don't want to talk about it. They don't want to go out there and sit at a city council or a board of health meeting and talk about it because their employer doesn't know or their family doesn't know, or so.
I see.
So that's kind of like one area we've been working in lately, an example of something that, like, people's voices don't get heard. And also, I mean, I don't blame people. A lot of people feel their voices aren't heard in our society anymore if they speak out. And I've been victim to that myself.
And partly what motivated you to begin this project, the Folding Chair Project, is because you felt maybe your voice wasn't heard as well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just kind of feeling like, you just have to keep going back to it. You get extremely disheartened at times, especially if you bring forth information that's legitimate and you have peer-reviewed research and you get dismissed. Mm-hmm. But, you have two choices, I always say you can laugh or you can cry, but like I always try to laugh and just kind of try to keep moving forward.
Yeah, and on the website, foldingchairproject.com. And by the way, and I knew because we had spoken before about this, and I knew what the Folding Chair Project was, but when I just went on to go on the website, what came up was how to build a folding chair. Chair projects, and I said, well, I don't think this is what you're doing. but if anybody's going to Google foldingchairproject.com, make sure you go right to that website and disregard all the folding chair images.
Unless you need one.
Yeah, that's right. And if you want to bring one to a meeting. But there's three things that you really focus on. One, education, advocacy, and direct access. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about each of those. Education. Tell us some examples of education that the Folding Chair Project provides.
So we talked about it. The last one is, stuff like Narcan training. I'm always happy to provide as much as I can, possibly free of charge. There's other trainings that I could do that I'm more than happy to develop and talk about whether or not I could do them as much as possible. I'd like to do some pro bono for folks training, and some maybe not. But so that's the training aspect. Could be anything from harm reduction, which I spend a lot of time on.
Post-overdose outreach.
Yeah, I did a lot of that, so I have some knowledge about that. Just generally working with people who use drugs, that kind of stuff. Relationship development, talking to folks about that kind of thing. And anything else under the sun, there's a lot that falls under that public health harm reduction umbrella that, I'm more than happy to talk to people about and I'm knowledgeable about. So I try to do that as much as possible. I'm hoping at some point to do some just kind of open, free trainings. I've done some in the past, but maybe with my buddy Mark Yakum, we'll see if he's
Mark's a good guy. Yeah.
So we've done a couple in the past here and there about fentanyls and facts versus fiction with fentanyls and stuff. So so that's a big thing. Advocacy, we kind of talked about that. I try to be responsive when I can to go to city council meetings or board of health meetings if that's pertinent. But that's hard. It's really hard. Part of the thing with, becoming civically engaged is, we have the open meeting law, which is great. But the thing is, it's like they post something that's kind of hard to read and understand. Like, whatever, I forget the limit, 7 days before the meeting. And so unless you're kind of like reading every agenda on the website, you don't know what's going on. So that's kind of hard, even for me, like, who's been doing that for a little while.
Oh, yeah.
So try to do that as much as possible. I'm willing to talk to anybody. Any time about any topic, such as yourself or any, if journalists reach out to me, I'm happy to talk on the topic from, a place of experience. Not only for myself, but for the people that I work with and try to represent them as much as possible. And then direct action, I just do as much as I can still to do outreach, not as much as I want to, but, I live in West Springfield currently, hoping to go back to Holyoke soon. But, the whole Riverdale Road corridor, there's people there that I talk to intermittently. The people of course, when you're dealing with that, when you're working with the homeless population who's homeless, people kind of cycle in and out. So I'm always trying to introduce myself to new people and just give them what they need, because to me, that's like the base of harm reduction in anything. Just seeing what that person needs in the moment and then providing that rather than assuming that I know. And telling them what they need. Because it just works better for a long-term relationship, and that's usually what they need. I try to carry a lot of things in my car. I have a whole box of stuff. That could be socks, it could be hand warmers, it could be mittens, it could be bottles of water, it could be If they need some Narcan, I've got that on me. If they need any other supplies like that, especially, that's a big thing. Like, people worry about, distributing syringes and supplies, but people are dying of endocarditis, like at a huge amount. I've talked about that and other things. And like, not having fresh supplies and also access for easy disposal, because, I don't know if you've ever tried to like dispose of syringes, yourself, but it's a pain in the butt.
Well, I used to work in a hospital, and certainly we had the containers for the needles in every room, and the medical waste containers in every room. So on. So that's
providing those to folks, and then being able to take those back. I mean, that's a huge thing, and that's what I enjoy the most is talking to people and working directly with them and seeing if I can do something that they feel is going to help them. Because to me, that's the biggest measure of anything. If someone is appreciative and says, hey, I was able to do this because you helped me out, so thank you, that means the most to me out of anything.
What we've learned a lot and I've learned so much over the past few years of talking with people on this program, is what I've said often is there's so little people know, and people don't know what they don't know. And often people just aren't aware of the programs, access programs, and so on that exist out there. People like yourself. And this is why we try to say, hey, if you don't know, please just get a hold of people like yourself and just say, okay, foldingchairproject.com. If I go there, then what? I'll see there's access, there's education, there's information, there's ways that even yourself would say, okay, I'm not the right, but here's, so you can refer and at least guide and direct people to where to go. And I think that's so much needed, because a lot of people say, I didn't know what to do, or families don't know what to do, or where to go, who to call, and so on. I think what you're doing is tremendous.
Yeah, and I have the website, which is very basic, of course, right now, more of just a way to get in contact and see some basic stuff. But I've been working more too on the Facebook page to not only post about what's going on with Folding Chair Project or things that we're thinking about, but I really try to repost interesting or important information from other folks, which is, there's an endless supply of that. I could almost get stuck all day doing that. But
I know.
There's a lot of information I put out there that's interesting and pertinent to what's going on.
Well, I commend you, because you've identified a need, a real specific need, especially for the people who don't feel that they're getting access or denied access for whatever reason, even if it's just perceived. Still, it's a place to start. It's a place to go, even if they think that they're marginalized and they don't have access to it. You stepped in and have identified a need for that, because there's a huge gap.
I am very privileged. I've been very lucky over my life, especially to get out of the situations and areas that I grew up in and I lived in. And I feel like I'd be doing a very big disservice if I didn't utilize the privilege that I have to try to kind of help other people find their voice, or at least work for them in a capacity when they can't be present to work for it.
Well, that's great. Well, I commend you on that work. And again, it's foldingchairproject.com, and Gabe Quaglia is the servant director of the Folding Chair Project, and also is involved with SAD-OD and with training and many other things. So again, if somebody wants, I'm going to mention this again because I think it's important, wants to reach you about training for Narcan or other programs, just go on foldingchairproject.com and then take it from there.
Yeah, shoot me an email. There's a link on there to shoot me an email, and I'll be happy.
And I know, believe me, and I respect your time, because you're a pretty busy guy. You're involved with so many things. But thanks for finding time to join us.
Anytime.
All right, thank you, Gabe.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. We'll have you back again.
I'll be.
And maybe we'll do one of those Narcan trainings.
And
that way you'll have, if sometimes you're not physically able to, you can at least watch this specific video about Narcan training, and maybe we can do something like that.
Be happy to. Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea. We'll work on that. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. See you soon.